I'm here in 0813 Randomize, and we'll be taking a look at the Randomize tool. The Randomize tool will let you quickly create random values for layers, keyframes, and property. So let's take a quick look at this tool interface. When we click on Randomize, we'll see a whole new menu pop up. Inside here, we can select either selected properties, layers, or selected keyframes. We'll start with selected properties. The selected properties would be the transform controls on our different layers. Inside the composition here, I have a bunch of circles and they're all the same shape, they're all the same size, and I want to play around with giving them a more random size, shape, and look. So I'm going to use Randomize to do this. Down here at the bottom, we have a few different options. We have the X, Y, and Z. We have maximum and minimum. These sliders let us say the maximum and minimum amount that we want to randomize this in either pixels or percent, based on the X coordinates, the Y coordinates, and if we're using 3D, the Z coordinates. So I'm going to go ahead and turn my max all the way up on this slider to 100. Now, I could go even farther just by clicking and typing it in to 1,000 or 10,000 or 100,000, but I'm just going to stick to 100 because that's more than enough. I'm going to move the minimum amount on my X down to -100. This is going to give us a wide range in which the randomness can happen. I'm going to do the same thing for the Y, up to 100, minimum down to -100, and I can just leave Z as is because none of these are in 3D. So I'm going to go down to circle 1 in my timeline. I will twirl it open and twirl open the transform controls. Let's just go ahead and click and drag to highlight all of the position, scale, rotation, and opacity. You can highlight anchor point too if you'd like, but it's not a big deal if you don't. I'll go ahead and click Randomize, and we'll see if I click off now, the little circle has become skinny, it's become opaque, it's been squished, it's been moved. It looks pretty interesting. So it's a little bit random. Now I'm going to go down to circle 2 and do the same thing. Just twirl open transform, highlight position, scale, rotation, opacity, hit the randomize, and it's totally different randomization than this last one. Let's go down to circle 3 and do the same thing. Transform, highlight, randomize, and this will let us create very random values for all of these different circles. I'm going to do it up to circle 5 like this and click, drag, highlight, randomize. So now all of these different circles are random, they're different, all of their properties have changed. One thing that I've noticed though, and this sometimes happens and it sometimes doesn't, I'm just going to twirl open 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10 and open up all of their transform controls. And I'm going to highlight them all and do them all together. I've noticed that things will turn out a little less random when I select multiple different things all at the same time and try to do it. Sometimes it works out, and I'm just clicking and dragging for position, scale, rotation, opacity, holding down Shift, scrolling down and doing it for the rest. Sometimes it works, sometimes it seems to be not very random at all. So let's see what happens here. So I have all of these selected with these properties, and I'm going to click Randomize. And if you notice, the first one changed, the rest did not. Let's try clicking Randomize again. First changed, the rest did not. This is a weird bug that I'm not sure why it happens, but it does happen. So I found that going through them individually, like circle 10, circle 9, circle 8, and circle 7, works best. So yeah, going through individually one by one on the selected properties will actually work better and randomize better than trying to do them all at the same time, which doesn't seem to work that well at all. All right, I'm going to take these back down to 0, and I can actually just type it in. If I type it in, sometimes the slider won't move back to where it is, but it will be at that actual value of 0. And now I'm going to go ahead and try something different. I'm going to hit Command A down in my timeline and twirl everything closed. Let's take a look at changing the layer's start times, in points and out points. This will actually change where these layers are in our timeline. So I'm going to select Start Time. I'm going to come down to the Randomize, and this can work just by adjusting the X and the Y coordinates. So I'm going to make sure to make my X into the positive. I'll go up to 100. And I'll leave this bottom, the minimum, at 0, because I don't want to go back into the timeline. With all of these selected, I can go ahead and click Randomize. And as you can see, it has moved these all along my timeline to different random times. This can help you stagger and move around different layers in different ways. Let's go ahead and click on Endpoint and take off the start time. This does something similar, and I'll hit Randomize, and you'll notice this actually stretched out our layers. It moves them, but it also stretches out and changes where the endpoint is on these layers. I'm going to hit Command Z a couple times to get back to fresh how it was before, and I'm also going to now show you out points. I will uncheck endpoints and keep out points checked. I'll hit Randomize, and this will stretch our layers and it will just change our out points of these. So you can adjust the timing, you can adjust the time, and you can adjust the length of different layers based on this. The last thing you can do, which I'm not going to demonstrate, is do the same thing with keyframes, both times and values of keyframes. So if you have animation on your timeline, you can use the selected keyframes to change the selected time of the keyframe, moving them along the timeline, or the values of the keyframe, changing their actual values inside here. Once again, while randomizing properties, it seems to work best when you're randomizing them one at a time, but works really well for multiple layers and their placement in a timeline using the layers option, and it works pretty well with the keyframes too.